Okay, so why is natural immunity better than vaccine-induced immunity? Couple of reasons. Probably natural immunity will last longer. At least that's what I see in my practice when I test people who had COVID a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. They still have antibodies circulating in their bloodstream and they're protected, whereas people who get vaccinated usually 6 to 8 months later have nothing circulating in their bloodstream anymore. Whether that changes if you actually come in contact with COVID or not is another question. But the other reason for natural immunity, at least for COVID, being much better than vaccine immunity is the route of entry. So when you get COVID or you get exposed to COVID, and whether you get asymptomatic disease or actually you get sick from it, the virus enters through the head and neck. So basically, the highest levels of the antibodies are going to be in the nose and the sinuses, in the upper airways and the mouth. And this is not only important for future protection from getting sick from COVID, it's also important to make sure that COVID cannot sit and cause an asymptomatic infection and then allow you to pass it on. The defenses are right where it enters, so it cannot enter your body and stay there and infect other people. When you do an injection with a vaccine into your arm, the highest levels of the antibodies are going to be generated in your bloodstream. And so in your bloodstream, you develop high levels of antibodies within a couple of weeks of the second dose. At that point, the levels of the antibodies in your bloodstream will become higher and higher for the first few weeks until they reach a point where now you not only have good antibody levels in your bloodstream, but also in your nose and in your upper airway. It's important to recognize that that takes a few weeks after the initial inoculation before you build up enough antibodies in the upper airway and your nose so that you not only are protected against getting severe disease, but you can't become a carrier for COVID-19. So, and unfortunately, they've measured and they know that the levels that you build up in the upper airway and in the nose are still going to be only about a half of what they are in your bloodstream. And then on the other end, when the immunity in your bloodstream wanes, the immunity in the upper airway has already waned a few weeks before that. So that really there's a sweet spot for the COVID vaccine, and it's somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 months after vaccination, where you have great levels in your upper airways and you have great levels in your bloodstream, but probably for the first few weeks after you get the first shot and probably a few weeks before the vaccine wears off in your bloodstream, you've already lost the immune globulins up in the upper airway, and you can get sick from COVID and you can pass it on to someone else.